Okay, today we have a surprise for you and a surprise for me. I literally have no idea what Julie is about to ask me. So we're going to cue our introduction and then we're going to dive right into her question. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we will be breaking down the strategies and tactics you need to know to build your health, strength, and function without feeling achy, sore, or injured.
We're your hosts, Julie and Charlie, the creators of the Exercise for Life membership. Your podcast starts now. Okay, Charlie, I think you probably already know this about me, of what I think about you, because I'm married to you, but I think you have some really thoughtful things that you share. And I think when you do share something, there's a lot of thought behind it. And there's something you wrote that I really want to talk about today on the podcast, because I think it will really help frame in people's mind about how to change their exercise to help them live a healthier lifestyle rather than, I think sometimes when we exercise, especially if you were a former athlete like you were, we think exercise has to be this really intense, domineering thing rather than looking at the results versus the action. So anyways, I wanted to ask you this because in your Instagram profile, it says former college athlete turned exerciser for life. Will you tell us, what does that line mean? And then I want us to actually dive more into, like, how did that become you? How did you do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first part is pretty straightforward, right? Like, I used to play college basketball. And the thing about it is sports left my body broken. And I needed to figure out a way how to make sure that I could keep doing the things I wanted to do, but without being in pain, without feeling chronically tight. And really that stemmed from changing how I was exercising and changing how I viewed exercise, the role that exercise plays in my life, and how I saw exercise kind of fitting into the bigger picture of like being able to do stuff in my life. And you know, for me, for a decade or more, like exercise was something that I would do from like a training perspective, meaning, yeah, I would work out, but it was always to train to play a sport. All right. So everything about the workout was always geared towards, all right, well, how will this help me be a better basketball player? How will it help me run faster, jump higher? You know, lifting more weight is great, but really, like, how will it help me be stronger on the basketball court? How will it help me perform better? All right. And I think most people, when it comes to exercise, especially those that are involved in at least high school athletics, that's kind of the role that exercise plays is, you know, your first exposure to any kind of like serious training is all going to be around how to become a better athlete. And that's what it was for me. But the problem with that was, you know, by the time I was in my early 20s, like I said at the beginning, like my body was broken, meaning I was in constant pain, constant tightness all day long from the moment that I would wake up until I went to sleep at night with ice packs strapped all over my body. You know, I couldn't go for a run for more than 10 minutes without my body screaming at me to stop. I was kind of faced with this reality of, okay, well, what does my life look like in the future? Is it just going to be, you know, bouncing from chronic issue to chronic issue? Is it going to be, you know, filled with surgeries? Or is there something that I can do about it? The problem was that everything that I was trying to do to help me was in one way or another ultimately making me worse, in a lot of ways contributing to what I was experiencing. So I was kind of left with the choice, right, of, well, I can either not work out and get out of shape and weak and really lose the identity that I had at that point of somebody that was fit and athletic and strong and could jump really well and, you know, had, you know, good stamina and everything like that. So I could just completely get rid of that version of myself, or I could say, well, you know what, that identity is too important to me, so I'm just going to find a way to keep pushing through. And that's really the way that I went, is even though my body was in a lot of pain, even though I had a number of symptoms, even though it felt like I was one misstep away from rupturing my Achilles or, you know, rupturing my biceps tendon or anything like that, I was like, well, you know what, I would rather suffer those injuries in pursuit of maintaining my strength and building my athleticism, everything like that, than just let my body go by the wayside and say, well, these things are making me worse, so I'm just going to stop them altogether. So that was the path that I chose, and as you can imagine, that didn't help as far as like how my body felt and how my body functioned. And so fortunately, I had some interventions happen in my life, being introduced to different techniques and different mentors, and being able to learn from some really brilliant minds of like, hey, you know what, this is maybe how you need to change how you're going about doing things. These are the things that you need to start prioritizing with your workouts. And those shifts really started to allow me to develop a different picture of what exercise was. It was no longer about performing or about training for sports, but rather it became about, okay, how can I use this exercise thing to actually build my health, actually leave me feeling well, actually progress my body in a way that I feel like isn't breaking my body down, but is sustainable and enhancing my life. And so from that point forward, I realized, okay, this exercise thing, it's not about, trying to touch my head to the rim anymore or, anything like that. It's about like, okay, how can I, yes, be strong, be athletic, be, fit in the ways that I want to be, but ultimately be able to live the life that I want to live. And so that was a pretty dramatic shift for me that happened kind of during my 20s. And then from there, it became about piecing together those systems to help me do that.
Charlie, I love that story, because I think that when we look back, and I know this story, but, in the process of, being your wife for however long that's been, but like asking you about these things, like I think on our walk last week, I said, well, what is it that exercise does for you that like is part of the identity of you, or like men that are like you? Like you used to be an athlete, and that provided some type of manhood, some type of strength, some type of this is who I am. It's like the identity piece. But then realizing, which it's really great that you realize this and then tried to figure out and problem solve, but realizing that like that identity and how you pursued that identity was actually making you worse. Like it's crazy to think how athletic you were and how much in pain you were and how much like your joints were breaking down. I mean, I think I knew you for a good part of that. And just seeing like, how does this exist together? But it does, because that part of your manhood and other men's manhood of like, I own this is me, is so strong. But to say like, hey, how could you continue to pursue this strength, this body ownership, this athleticism really, but change it, because you're not an athlete anymore, but you are athletic. Because 4 times a week, you're putting your kids to sleep and rocking them. You're not at a basketball game.
Right.
You're not traveling across the country and playing at different tournaments. You are, carrying a 20-pound baby for 12 hours a day. Like it's different. You're servicing, you're providing for your family. So I just love that you brought up the identity piece, because I think so often, even in people's 20s, I think a lot of athletes stop working out. I was a swimmer. I knew a lot of athletes. We stopped working out. We're still in pretty good shape without having to do anything. But eventually in your 30s, when it's been 8 years since you've aggressively exercised, maybe mid 30s, some of your fitness will start to dwindle. And it's important to figure out, hey, do I just go back to what I knew? Most people do. Right? Training to be an athlete, training to perform, training to compromise your health for performance. That's what it is. And it's so interesting that you were able to take the step back, get the mentorship, get the education, so that you could keep your athleticism, keep your strength without all that compromise. And you are really athletic. I'm always shocked. I mean, I don't want to say I doubt you, but like, you never train a lot of athletic things. You train the way you tell your clients and you tell people in your men's program to train. It's it's all about how you exercise. But then when we're at the park, when we go to a new gym, or, you always are like, oh, let me test this move. And I'm like, what? You haven't tried that in like 6 years? I can't believe it. Or what was it, like 3 years ago, you did your best half marathon time, even though like you ran once or twice a week, and in college you were running all the time, and you never hit those kind of times.
Right.
So it just shows that like, hey, when you are doing the system that we've developed and you've developed, that it creates a stronger body, and that when you have a strong, powerful body, you can do the things you want versus like just be biased towards one sport.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I really like that you brought up is this idea that, hey, most of the people that play sports in high school, they're usually the ones that are just already a little bit more fit, maybe a little bit stronger. And especially as you progress through high school, maybe people start self-selecting themselves out of continuing to, go play at a varsity level or something like that, right? And so that means then that as you progress through high school, if you continue to play at a varsity level, then, you're going to be also doing more training to, try to help keep your performance at a varsity level. And if you go on to college, obviously it goes from there. But the thing that I like that you brought up is even when the like formal competitions stop with your games, you still kind of carry that identity with you of, all right, well, like, I'm an athlete. I am, whatever sport player. Okay. And for a lot of people, you never really shed that. For a lot of guys in particular, you never really kind of shed that identity. And yet at some point in your life, you're realizing, well, the body and the function and the capabilities that I had in my late teens, in my early 20s, that's not the same as what I have right now. And so now all of a sudden there's this like identity crisis of like, okay, well, I believe myself to be an athlete, or I believe myself to be a basketball player, and shoot, I can't even jump over a mouse, let alone jump over a couch or whatever I used to do before, right? So anyways, a lot of guys are faced with that, and you miss that feeling. You miss that feeling that you had in your late teens and early 20s of being indestructible, of being bulletproof, of being like, yeah, I can go through this thing, I can do this thing, and yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. Shoot, it might even hurt while I'm doing it, but I know I'm going to bounce back in a day or two, and I'm going to be okay. And you miss that feeling of like indestruction, like I said. And so what a lot of guys end up turning to is, okay, well, the way that I got to feel that way was by doing these different things with my training. So I just need to go back to doing those things with my training, and I will go back to feeling that way. Completely neglecting the fact that your body is totally different than it used to be. Your hormone levels are totally different than what they used to be, especially if you've been taking the last 10, 15, 20 years off from like really intense exercise and monitoring what you're eating and, minimizing your stress and getting more sleep and everything like that, right? So you are approaching your workouts with a completely different system than you once had. And that leaves a lot of guys in trouble. Because as much as you want that feeling back of bulletproof, of indestruction, of, I can do whatever and, bounce back and be okay, the reality is your body is not in that position right now. And if you try to do the things that you once did in order to get back to that position, that's when a lot of guys end up feeling really lousy from their workouts. They're feeling like they end up just flat out injured in a number of different ways. And then guys are kind of left in a little bit of a precarious situation because they're like, all right, well, do I keep pushing forward with this or do I just stop? And when the only way you know how to work out is like a high school athlete, a lot of guys either choose to stop because they're like, this isn't working for me, or their body tells them they have to stop because at some point it's just not working for them. And so that's, I felt like what most guys reach in their late 30s, early 40s, maybe even upwards of their 50s, depending on how long of time they've taken off and stuff like that. I was kind of faced with that question in my early 20s, early to mid 20s. And it's like, okay, I know something needs to change now. And so that was the the driver behind changing things.
Yeah, you brought up so many good points there with just you have to change or your body will respond and make you stop, right? Because the way you exercise in high school and college when you're young, and we always bring this up because this is when most people are like forced to exercise, right? Like you have to go to gym class, you have to be in sports, or most people are. But it's like saying, hey, the actions I used to take to lead me to this identity that I love of indestructible, strong, I can do what I think I'm going to do and bounce back just fine, even if it hurts a little. But saying, hey, at this age, at this stage, I have to change my actions because I'm a different man. I'm a different body. So I want you to like a little bit go into what you did then and what you did now. And I can only imagine, I'm going to already go ahead and give you the parameter as your wife that when I was a high school swimmer, we swam 4 hours a day and then extra on Saturday. We swam a total of 24 hours a week. And I know you were equally as aggressive, maybe similar time, but your intensity was probably a bit higher. So first of all, you're not allowed to exercise that long. I'm not going to give you that much time to work on your exercise. So I know the time had to have changed from then to now.
For sure.
Talk to us about like the then and now and the why of like, what are you adding in now? Because you exercise, I see you exercise regularly, but it's not a ton of time. There's never a day that you're like, all right, Julie and the kids, let me see you in 4 hours.
Right.
Like I would be pissed. I was so mad. I'm like, what? This is a family day. You're not going for 4 hours.
Sure.
Or like if you pieced out and like exercised and then played basketball and then went to your ice recovery because you overdid all of it and then had to go to massage another day, like half the time you're spending recovering from the workout.
Right.
Like, you're not allowed to do that as my husband. So tell us about what you did then, wifeless, and mostly thoughtless, right?
Sure.
You were just doing what you thought you should do to now you're very thoughtful and methodical about how you do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, most mornings I was up at 6 so I could be to the gym, shortly after it opened. And I mean, in college. And then I would lift for about an hour to an hour and a half. Then I would, I'd do my recovery, like mobility work and stuff. And then I would obviously like go to class and eat breakfast and everything like that. But so I do a heavy lift 5 days a week. And this was during the basketball season as well. Okay. Then in the afternoon, there would be, about an hour or so of just shooting and, getting warmed up and everything like that before practice. And then it was an hour and a half to 2 hours of practice. And this was like during the season, sometimes earlier in the season, especially like the first couple years of my college career, the practices would go much longer than that. But, we'll say like, an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then it was another, 30 minutes or so of just kind of like cool down stretching, icing, everything like that. So, it was consistently 4 hours a day, really solid, physical activity. Sundays, we maybe had practice a couple times on Sundays, maybe had games a couple times on Sundays, but Sundays for the most part were like off days from a basketball perspective, but I would go and get a 2.5 hour lift in.
Sweet, we're not playing basketball.
Right,
I can lift longer.
Exactly. Then also additionally, there were a couple days a week where I'd throw in probably about a 30-minute or so plyometric session. So yeah, I mean, it was consistent, like a minimum of kind of like 2 hours of working out a day, but more consistently 4-ish hours of working out a day. Through college.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't look like that at all. Now, I'll lift anywhere from 4 to 5 times a week. My lifts take 30 to 40 minutes, and I'll do cardio 2 to 3 times a week. Some weeks, sometimes more, but my cardio sessions are maybe a little bit longer on Sundays, where I'll go 40 minutes to an hour, but otherwise they're almost always under 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, something like that. And that's how I go about it. And then obviously working out during all of our live workouts.
Awesome. And then the doing of the exercise. What is in your head that's different now? Because you have to be doing something different because you are in shape, you are athletic, you have maintained so many of the skills,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not in pain. You're not
Right.
like the amount of times that you say like, "Oh, Julie, my hip feels flared up," is like once in a great moon,
Right.
or all the other things. So
Sure.
what is your brain doing differently in framing this exercise thing?
Yeah. So now, or before, it was like, all right, push your body as hard as you can. Try to deplete your body as much as you can, with the idea that, when you rest and recover, you'll build back stronger. And look, when you're in your late teens and early 20s, for the most part, that's pretty much how it works. But now it's more about, all right, working out today to stimulate my body and do so in a way that actually sets me up to come back and work out again tomorrow. So nothing that I do in my workout today should be prohibitive to me coming back and exercising again tomorrow. So if I'm working out in a way that tomorrow I wake up and I feel sore at all, or like, wow, yesterday's workout is affecting me exercising today, then I need to change that, because yesterday's workout, the focus of it is, all right, how do I set myself up to work out again today? Today's workout is, okay, how can I set myself up to come back and work out again tomorrow? Just really focused on stimulating my body the entire time, as opposed to trying to deplete my body.
I love that. And it's not with lack of work or challenge. I mean, I watch you work out, you are challenging your body. So if someone was like relating to your story and they're like, dude, I am that person. I was the college athlete feeling indestructible. Now I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s, and I want to feel that feeling again. And the only path that I know is like what I learned in high school football conditioning class.
Yeah.
What is maybe 1 to 3, like, if I applied this, I'm going to be safer, I'm going to be more effective, I'm going to be better with my outcomes. What would you tell that person?
Yeah. So number one, when you're working out, keep your focus on squeezing your muscles. All right. There's so much distraction when we exercise. The music, thinking about the weight moving up and down. In other words, like getting the reps, or, the whole competition aspect of exercise, turning exercise into a sport. If you can block all that out and just focus on squeezing your muscles, so much good will come from that. You'll be more respectful of your range of motion. You'll be more in tune with what's happening with your body. So you'll have a better idea of like when to stop your workouts, how to change your workouts. Just make that one shift of when you're doing your exercise, focus on squeezing your muscles. Number 2 is really kind of what I said before, is just use today's workout to set you up to come back and work out again tomorrow. All right. And the way to go about doing that is by continuously asking yourself that question. Can I come back and do this again tomorrow? So while you're exercising, if at any point that answer starts to trend towards a no, then you need to either change what you're doing, slow down what you're doing, or stop what you're doing. You want to be yes with that answer 100% of the time with your workouts. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be, but you want to be. That's what you're striving for, is like, yes, I can come back and work out again tomorrow. And I think the third big thing for guys is all right, you've kind of gotten rid of the competition aspect because you're just going to focus on squeezing your muscles. You understand like how this stacks up in the rest of your life, as far as like, all right, I'm going to use this workout to set me up to work out again tomorrow, not to deplete my body. Give yourself permission to do workouts that don't last very long. As a high school athlete, college athlete, or whatever level you participate in, I mean, like the minimum amount of time that practice would be is 60 minutes. So that's kind of like everybody's baseline. Oh, the workout has to be 60 minutes. Give yourself permission. The workout does not have to be 60 minutes. Give yourself permission to do a workout that's 20 minutes, 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. Find the thing that's going to work for you and work for your body and work for your schedule. And then start there. And if you want to expand upon the duration, cool, you can do that. Once you get the frequency down, once you get the frequency of, okay, I'm able to exercise 5 days a week, I'm able to exercise 6 days a week, I'm able to exercise 7 days a week and not feel lousy after, not feel like my body can't keep going. So those would be the 3 things I would think about. Number 1, focus on squeezing your muscles. Number 2, understand that today's workout is setting you up to come back and work out again tomorrow. Always keep that in the forefront of your mind. And number 3, give yourself permission to do those shorter workouts, what we call little workouts.
I love that. And when you were talking about number 2, like setting up your workouts to work out again, and and you said it's not that you absolutely have to work out, but that you could. This is making me think of one day I decided I should run a half marathon. I have no idea why, but it was like part of what I thought the identity of being a personal trainer was. I should run a half marathon. And while I was running it, I thought, thank goodness I'm not going to work out for the next week or two because I am so tired right now. And I think that's what we often do with our workouts. Like we think the more the better versus the more frequent the better, the more regular the better. Because this exercise that's making you feel indestructible needs to make you feel indestructible, meaning like you're not taking a day or two off or having to go to a massage just to recover from the exercise assault that you just did to your body, or ice bath for an hour every day. So I love those points. I think that's really going to start helping people trend their mindset around exercise, because we get so focused on, well, what do I know?
Right.
Well, what you know is not working, and it's not going to work because your body is now 30 years older. It's 20 years older. It's 40 years older. We have to train your body to be the best body that you're at right now.
Exactly. Yeah. And so to me, those 3 steps are key. And if guys are having trouble kind of getting started with it, I think, also just giving yourself permission to be like, all right, well, you know what? My starting place is just getting up and moving throughout the day. A lot of times I feel like guys in particular are like, okay, well, I'm going to start something like, it needs to be really challenging. It needs to be that thing that, makes me feel like a man. It's like, dude, just start by getting up, moving around consistently throughout your day. And that in and of itself will start to do wonders for your ability to just be like, okay, yeah, like I can do this getting up and moving around thing. And then from there, then you can start to expand upon that.
Charlie, I know you've been working hard to create more stuff for people that identify just like you. You want to feel that athletic feel inside of you. You want to feel that indestructible feel, but you're not still a college athlete. How can people work with you on this if they're wanting just a little more guidance or connect with you, like pick your brain on a few things? How can they do that?
So I put a lot of content out on Instagram, so you can follow me there at Charlie Cates. But really, if you're wanting to get specific workout guidance, I'm actually releasing a program on March 20th that's specifically designed for men and targeted towards men, helping them do exactly what I just talked about, like get these workouts in that don't last very long, but really teach you kind of like the 4 key steps that every single exercise needs to have in place to build your strength and build your athleticism without setting you up for injury. And so if you want to get in on that, you can submit your information, and as soon as it gets released, you'll get notified about it. All you do is go to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com/men. And from there, you'll find the landing page, and you just put your name and email address in. There's no cost at all for the program, but you are going to get those workouts and learn those steps, most importantly, that you can then apply to whatever other workouts you want to do.
Amazing. I can't wait for that program to drop. I know like we've been talking about it for a while. Your ideas about it have been really exploding. So make sure you go check out that landing page so that when it does drop, you will get first access to this free program. So thanks so much for tuning in today. We hope you loved this message. Charlie was actually surprised with this question. Yesterday I was like,
I had no idea what was coming.
I was like, Charlie, I've got a great idea for our podcast. I think people are going to love this like brain picking session that I'm going to have with you. And he was like, okay, let's do it. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Let them know. Share this podcast with them. We always appreciate when you share and comment and leave us a review, because that's how our message gets to grow. As you guys know, we're super passionate about reframing the exercise game for you, because it is so critical for your health and function. So make sure you share it with a friend, share it with a former athlete, and give us a review, and we'll catch you guys next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Cates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.